Welcome to Mana's Seal YouTube channel. The previous video link is on the description box or on the top right card. Volume 15, The Half-Elf Godkin. Although it went smoothly with the dwarves, he doubted that he would succeed in the same way again. Rather, it was more likely to end up the opposite of what he intended. Therefore, he wanted to send wise people in his stead if they were to engage in diplomacy. Albedo was the best choice for this, but he didn't want to assign her any additional work, as she would be busy for a while managing the occupied territories of the kingdom. She would probably say it's fine if he ordered her, and she would probably be right. But that would mean she would have to overstretch herself to make it work, so Ainz needed to keep his subordinates' mental health in mind, to not overwork them. Ainz would have been extremely happy if they just made this conversation just about making personal acquaintances with the Dark Elves, instead of making it about something so important. Ainz Ulgan-sama. What exactly does this cooperation entail? Ainz shrugged slightly at a cautious response. First, I want to hear some details from you. Also, just Ainz is fine, you know. We will be at your service if it's something we know, the elf replied with a determined look, but please forgive us for not being able to address you so. Aura, Mare, and the maids around them who were secretly eavesdropping had perplexed expressions. If elves called him Ainz, then they would be told that they were being over-familiar and should understand their position. But if they did not, they would be told, how dare they refuse Ainz-sama's order. They were probably feeling conflicted because they knew that they would react in that exact way. He didn't intend to scold the maids listening in. It's not like they were doing it out of malice or simple curiosity. He felt they would go me to be on call if he needed them during this conversation. Is that so? That's regrettable. So, returning to the topic at hand. How's it, Elven country? How do you deal with monsters seeing that you live in the forests? The elves had confused expressions, as if they were just asked a weird question. Well, we live in the forest. Our homes are on the top of trees, because it's dangerous on the ground. We make our homes by transforming trees using druid magic. The trees suitable for such magic are also grown by magic. We call them elf trees. From what they said, it seemed like the elves could change the shape of trees, using druid magic. Like creating cavities inside the trees or shaping bridges between trees. An elf village was just a place where tens of those structures were bunched up together. This method of making things out of elf trees seemed to be at the core of elven culture. Not just homes or furniture, they could also create weapons and armor out of it. It was possible to make the arrows they used for hunting to be as hard as iron. Ainz wanted them to demonstrate this magic as it did not exist in Yggdrasil. They were surprised at that request because from their point of view, the tree the twins lived in was an example right there. It looked like they thought it was a mutated elf tree because it looked different, that could only be transformed by those two. Furthermore, as that magic can only be used on elf trees, it didn't work with other trees. Because the elves lived in such conditions, monsters that were good at climbing trees like snakes or spiders were their natural enemies. Although they had things like a night watch, those monsters also tended to be good at concealment. There were still victims every now and then. On the other hand, they did not get attacked as much by monsters that couldn't climb, because it was easier to fight them off. It seemed like the elven capital, the only place the elves could call a city as they were not a populous race, was the only settlement that was constructed in a place without the forest's cover, on the shore of a crescent-shaped lake. The seemed like was added because these elves never visited the capital and only heard about it from others. They could establish that city on a plain because there was a giant monster in the lake that captured and ate any large monsters that came nearby. I see, Ainz thought. As druid magic could also provide water, living on the trees was advantageous for them. As for flying monsters, the canopy of the elf trees could act as a shield, while also hiding them. Living in such circumstances, it was natural that most of the elves gain abilities as rangers or druids. In other words, they could not survive without developing such abilities. I don't know how class selection works in this world, but seems like without jobs like farmers among them, the elves are more likely to be better fighters than humans, he continued, asking them about the lifespans and population of the elves. They were evidently not that concerned about how long they lived, seeing as they did not know their own lifespans. It seemed like the oldest person there was thought to be over 300 years old. By the way, these elves didn't even know their own age. It was likely that they did not have the concept of a birthday. Perhaps it was due to their long lives, they did not give birth frequently like humans, and thus their populations were much smaller. However, upon learning more, Ainz thought that the number of children they had was not small at all. In Yggdrasil's setting, an elf's lifespan was 1,000 years. They age up quickly in the first 10 years, and then in the last 10 years, I think. I don't remember the exact details, but I think it's something like that. Or am I wrong? Also, if they supposedly gave birth once every decade, if we consider 200 years old as the start of adulthood and 400 years old to be when infertility sets in, 20 children. I want to learn more details about this in the future. Then, if I were to return you to your former village, where would I go? Elves started looking at each other. I see, of course they will not talk about it. It's important information after all. After a while, one of the elves inquired hesitantly. Excuse me, but are we going to be sent back to our homes? Noticing their strange choice of words, Ainz realized his mistake. That's right. I forgot that your village was attacked by the theocracy. These elves were not soldiers, just people who were living in the village that were captured during the theocracy's attack on it. From their point of view, it was painful to return back to that place. Plus, their safety could not be guaranteed. Let's do this. Instead of returning you to your village, we'll take you to a safe place. Do you have any such place in mind? A village with your relatives, or if there aren't any, how about the capital? The capital. Please forgive us. We don't know any other place except the surroundings of our village. I wonder which place can be considered a safe place. These elves were unfamiliar with information outside of their village, but that wasn't something limited to these girls. It's the same for the villagers from the kingdom or the empire. People in this world mostly live out their entire lives at their place of birth, especially for those without education. Though they would barely know about their neighboring cities, the other cities in their country might as well be foreign lands to them. While Ainz was pondering over this, the elf spoke again. Excuse us, but are we really going to be sent back outside? That's what I plan to do. If we are to engage in diplomacy with the Elven country, keeping you here would make the other side dissatisfied. You understand, don't you? I kept you here until now as an emergency measure, but it will be hard to continue doing so. However, I am not cruel enough to release you in a land under the control of the slain theocracy. That's why I asked you for a safe location. Although Ainz did not intend to be the emissary, returning these three back safely would probably help with future diplomacy. Seeing that the elves wanted to say something, Ainz asked them, "What's the matter? Is it possible to let us continue staying here?" Ainz moved his gaze to the drinks in front of the elves. There was no way that was the reason, right? Why? I can understand if you don't want to tell me, but please do if possible. About that. The elf representing them took a quick look at the twins. Or, Mare. It looks like your drinks are nearly finished. Why don't you go and get some more? Okay. Understood, Ainz-sama. Let's go, Mare. Splendid. Ainz admired Aura's quick wit. If he was in Aura's place, he wouldn't have understood so quickly that he was being told indirectly to get away for a while. Or perhaps his working adult senses would have instantly understood it. One could stand to reason that Aura was better than Albedo or Demiurge, reading the mood. Ainz could imagine Demiurge with a grin saying, "So that's what it is, Ainz-sama." Those two would completely misunderstand my intentions, to the point where I sometimes doubt if they are doing it intentionally. Or are they really doing it intentionally? Aura dragged away the still puzzled Mare by his arms. Ainz spoke after they were distant enough. Can you say it now? The elf replied, after confirming that the twins are far enough from them with a quick glance. The dark elf's sense of hearing was better than a human's, and rangers like Aura were even better at it. The elf before him was probably whispering with that in mind, but it was highly likely that Aura could still hear them. We are already used to our life here, and we cannot return to that life again. This place, Aura-sama and Mare-sama's house, is the best. Ainz initially lowered his volume to match the elf's, but he let out his usual voice at the sudden surprise. He thought that they were joking for a moment, but after he saw the other two nodding seriously, he understood that was their true sentiment. First, it seemed like the food quality in Nazarick was on a different level. Elves normally ate fruits, meats, and vegetables by either roasting or boiling them. The amount of passion Nazarick puts into his food was completely different. The elves said with certainty that they were not confident they could ever adjust to their former lives after getting used to the food here. By the way, pizza seemed to be their favorite. I see. Culinary diplomacy does not seem like such a bad idea. Being able to access such fine cuisine should be a point of appeal. Are they dwarves or what? The elves also had other reasons. The level of safety here was also completely different. Even if they lived in a moderately safe place like a village created by druid magic, it was impossible for a year to pass without any casualties occurring due to monsters. In contrast, one could sleep peacefully in Nazarick even without having someone to guard at night. They had a lot to say, but if it was something like this, there was no need to get the twins away from here. As Ainz wondered if there were more reasons, she added, and being able to serve those two is a joy. Ainz nodded empathetically. Those two were of a similar race to the elves, and were cute children to boot. They probably had doubts about serving children, but Aura's and Mare's personalities had likely won them over. Even Ainz would select the twins if he was asked which of the floor guardians he would like to serve. No, if someone did ask him, he would probably say something like, "I can't choose because everyone is wonderful." But if he was being honest, it would be those two. Next in line might be Cocytus. He really didn't want to serve the others.